any treatment or with any support, that there's a really natural ebb and flow. And a lot of times I notice, especially, when there's some type of intervention that takes place, the child will typically get better for a period of time. And then all of a sudden, that progress will begin to stop. And typically, about that time, the parent says, oh, my gosh, they're regressing, or, oh, my gosh, this isn't working. Maybe we should stop doing this, those kinds of things. So can you speak to this kind of ebb and flow that happens really within just about any treatment?
Yes. So I want to just hop to the known, to a pattern that if you're a parent you already have seen with healthy kids, and that is the whole growth spurt sequence of events. Children kind of go along at a certain pace of integrating things and learning things and getting bigger, and then all of a sudden it'll be like a couple of days to a couple of weeks that they're clumsy, like they haven't been in a couple of years, and they're muddling things up that they know, and they're not really functioning all that well. And then all of a sudden you realize that they are shooting up. They've gone up 2-3 inches in the space of a couple of weeks. Most people have seen at least once this kind of growth spurt happen. What happens is that your system has a lot of things it needs to keep in balance all the time. And when it needs to put a lot of energy into one thing, like growing or like healing, it takes energy away from the other things that you've been doing in order to make that investment. And the less leeway that you have, and those of us in the autistic spectrum have very little leeway, the more you'll see that kind of dip in function when somebody's ready for another growth spurt, another healing, another round of getting better at a much more intense pace. So just to know, our bodies do this in a number of ways. Even for those of us who aren't in the autistic spectrum, you may have had the experience of getting a cold. And some colds you can just kind of get everything done and just not worry about it. Other colds, it's as though you have absolutely no energy. You can get up, you can make yourself a tea, and you can go back to bed. And it's as though you can't think, it's as though you can't plan, it's as though you can't move. Everything has kind of shut down so that your body can deal with that cold. This is what it's like when you're dealing with toxin loads in the body and different types of injuries that have impaired the correct developmental sequence of the body. If you now have the materials you need to make those changes and to do that healing, and if you now have the support that you need to do that healing, you may lose a lot of function when you dive into the middle of that healing, because it's like having a cold. Everything else shuts down so that the energy can be focused on the healing that needs doing. So please don't look at it as a regression. It's more like the old concept of a healing crisis.
I also, over the years, especially when I was working more as a speech-language pathologist, I would watch parents go through, of course every parent wants to help as much as they can, and it was very noticeable to me that when a child was given all kinds of different treatments, kind of one on top of the other, without giving the ability to kind of wait and see what's the pattern for this particular process, and then they added another one, before they could even figure out what that pattern was, it felt to me like the child became much more stressed, and of course the parents became much more stressed as well. And so how do you feel about kind of multiple types of treatments happening simultaneously?
It really depends on the treatments. Yeah. Some things like homeopathy and herbal first aid and general safe and easy detox. These are things that when you learn how to do them, you can pull them out as needed. But if you're looking at an intensive intervention, like, for example, one of the popular things through the Autism Research Institute is to do a DMSA challenge. That's a chelating agent that pulls toxins out of their storage places and into the bloodstream, so you can measure how much is there. When you do something like that, and then you're wanting to do, behavioral stuff on top or whatever else in the way of social cues, that's not going to work. Because with the increased amount of challenge dealing with the healing that DMSA calls for, your function is going to drop. And so expecting a child to continue with the same level, say in music lessons or whatever else that you have that child involved in, is not going to be helpful for the child. I really would encourage for any of the intensive interventions that you look at doing just that one thing and whatever will support the clearing of that one thing through the system. So rather than saying music lessons, say, okay, we're going to do toning and we're going to do holosync or hemisync CDs, and what are we going to do to support that child in doing the integration and detoxing that they need to do in this particular intensive treatment time.